was an interesting week.
Yep.
You were very interested to see what the Carney's legislation would look like around bail reform.
Yes.
What do we see there?
There was a very encouraging news conference yesterday with Attorney General Nikki Sharma, and she said that the new legislation in Ottawa includes a number of changes that BC had requested. And she said she's very encouraged by that. She particularly cited two changes that BC had only just asked for. So you remember that awful case in Kelowna, July the 4th, 32-year-old mother of two, beaten savagely with a hammer in broad daylight. She died in hospital later that day. The accused in the case is her estranged husband. And the really disturbing thing about that case is the accused was convicted earlier that very day of 3 counts of threatening and 1 count of assault by choking. In spite of those convictions, he was released, and a few hours later, Bailey McCourt was attacked out, as I say, in broad daylight. So the province, Sharma says this, the province looked at what actually happened there. How did it happen that the accused was released? And she said the province made 2 proposals, both of which are in the new federal law. So, one, where charges involve domestic violence, intimate partner violence, they call it, like, for example, assault by choking, where there's a charge like that, the new law, the revised law, will say that the onus will be on the accused and his lawyer to persuade the court that he can be safely released, that it's in the public interest that he be granted bail. And that's called reverse onus. The other thing, this is an interesting one. The province researched what happens between conviction and sentencing. So someone's convicted and they're released pending sentencing. What the province found is that with many people convicted of crimes, they're on their best behavior, awaiting sentencing for obvious reasons. But the province found that where it's a case of intimate partner violence, there is a chance of reoffending. The victim is at risk. And so the province said the sentencing rules should be changed around that. A person convicted of intimate partner violence should be held in custody pending sentencing because of the risk to the victims. And that change is in there too. So, you know, I say I've covered this federal-provincial relationship, Harold, for a long time. And this case only happened in July. And the province only asked for these changes over the summer. And in less than 4 months, Ottawa's done it. And so I think the New Democrats, our Attorney General Nikki Sharma, got it right when she praised the federal government for responding so quickly to a concern out here. She said she thinks many of the other changes are also effective and good. There are 80 changes in all, so we'll be reporting on those for the next little while. But that one, because of the McCourt case here in BC, is very significant. And Sharma says she thinks if those changes had been in place, the accused would not have been released on bail.
Interesting. Well, with the length of time, I'm trying to think of, though, the length of time it takes now for someone to be tried, convicted, and sentenced means people could be in jail for a very long time.
Yeah, there will be challenges to this, and we're already hearing from criminal justice lawyers and civil libertarians that these changes federally will not stand up to court challenges. And that may be right. I mean, my view is that what we call the catch and release justice system in this country is as much a product of our judges as it is of our governments and our lawyers and our crown prosecutors and so forth and police. So that is an open question. But I do think that, our view of our Attorney General, Nikki Sharma, is yes, there has to be a balance, but she thinks that these changes will respond. For example, she was asked about the problem of repeat offenders in property crimes. And she said she thinks that the changes will address that concern. We're hearing from mayors around British Columbia about downtown violence and vandalism, windows smashed, the arson case of the brewery in Prince George. And she thinks that the changes will also allow the courts to withhold bail for prolific offenders in that area too. We'll see. But as I said, the initial response is this is substantive. And you'll know that 2 years ago, BC and other provinces asked the Trudeau government for bail reform, and the reforms they brought in did not deliver what the provinces were looking for. That's the view this time, is these are more substantive changes, and they have a better chance of addressing some of the problems that have been identified out there.
Clearly, there are people out there who should be locked up, so I don't want to downplay that. But I do have to wonder, when we already have an overcrowded prison and remand system, where are we going to put all of these people who are, that we can't release? And is locking them up the best answer when we all know that many of these folks are driven to this by drug addictions and mental health issues? So the lock them up and throw away the key approach doesn't seem to fit with what you'd expect from an NDP government.
On that one, they say that this is why they are also dealing with involuntary care, particularly for people with mental health and addictions issues. And they're dealing with that. The federal news release has a challenge in it. It says, now we would like to remind the provinces and the territories that to make this work, they have to deliver the goods on issues like police staffing, prosecutors, making sure the judges know what people's record is, essentially resources in the system. And Sharma got asked about that at our news conference, and she said, yes, that's right. The challenge is on provinces. And she says the BC government has been putting more resources into the system and recognizes that it needs to keep doing that. So to make this work, both levels of government, in fact, municipal governments and police forces have to be on side as well. But she said she thinks British Columbia can rise to the challenge, and she said she's encouraged by the relationship that's emerged between the provinces and Sean Fraser, the new federal justice minister.
All right. Well, we'll keep our eye on that one. And one other thing, Vaughn, I mean, we've been talking for every week now, it seems, for a while about John Rustad and his future as leader of the BC Conservative Party. He did not have a great week.
No, he had a terrible week. So the week started with another resignation from the caucus. Amelia Boltby quit. So this is the fifth exit from the Conservative caucus. They haven't quite made it through a full year since the election yet. And Rustad, I don't think, distinguished himself by talking about something that Boltby had shared with him in confidence. So she had gone to him as leader in confidence because she was having difficulty with a child abuse case that she was following in her capacity as the opposition critic for the Ministry of Children and Family Development. And that case that ministry has horror stories, and she's having difficulty. And she said, I talked to John Rustad because I saw him as a mentor and a friend. And she said, I sought help and I got help and it worked. And she says she's really disturbed that when Rustad came out and talked to reporters about her departure, he talked about her crying and needing help, and his own members, his staff saying, she's fragile and all that. I don't think that's how a leader should behave in a case like this. I think that reflects badly on him. And then we got the letter from the party board. And this is a board made up of a slate that John Rustad himself, they were
Yes.
elected in March at a convention I covered. And they were elected as a Rustad endorsed slate. And 7 members of that board signed the letter and said, we don't have confidence in you anymore, John. You got us to where we are today, yes, but we've had a terrible time since then on your watch. And what you should do is resign and clear the way for a leadership race within the party. Rustad says he's not resigning, and in fact, I gather he's told the board that they're the ones who should resign. So I don't see a happy ending to this process, Harold. I think it's, this much internal damage to the party is just a matter of time before Rustad's going to have to go, but he says he's not. And he says, the party should be worried about maybe David Eby taking advantage of this to call a snap election. Well, I think they should be worried, but it's the only one of the few laughs this week, and there have been a few of them, there was one day where we staked out the Conservative caucus room, and the Conservatives are coming out, and we're all asking, the reporters are all asking, the cameras are rolling, do you support John Rustad? Do you support John Rustad? And they don't want to talk to us. I joke that we should actually go down to the NDP caucus room and ask them if they support John Rustad remaining as Conservative leader, because I think there's no question that the New Democrats, with all their troubles, are grateful that the official opposition is embroiled in all this internal dissension. It keeps the opposition from doing what an opposition, the opposition can still hold the government to account, and they're doing that. But the other question the voter has is, are they themselves united and ready to govern? And I don't think anybody thinks that.
Well, is anyone at this point, or is it too early? Is anyone emerging as a potential heir apparent who could bring this group together?
No, I think that's part of the problem. If you talk to conservatives who are, on the inside, they say, well, there isn't an obvious successor who could do it. And they said, in addition, like a lot of them, the party's so new that a lot of them don't even know their own members. Like, would the members, are they all on the far right? Are they centrists? That's a genuine concern among conservatives, is who would take over from Rustad if they had a leadership race? And would it be an improvement if it were somebody that would move the party? Rustad's tried to maintain a centrist stance. He was a BC Liberal MLA for many years. He's tried to keep them closer to the center on particularly socially conservative issues, although he's moved them somewhat to the right. But, that is a legitimate concern. Could they do worse? Yes, they could.
All right. On that happy note, thanks, Vaughn. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you next week.